There are moments in life that fracture us so deeply we believe healing will always stay just out of reach. And yet, some people discover that the very pain that tried to break them becomes the doorway to profound transformation. Today's conversation is about that doorway and what it can look like to walk through it with courage, honesty, and support. Welcome to Healing Horizons, the space where we explore real stories of healing, growth, and what it truly means to move forward after trauma. Today, I'm joined by Tracy Smaldino, host of the podcast Trauma Rock Stars and a trauma recovery thriver who brings lived experience, depth, and compassion to this work. In this episode, we're exploring Tracy's trauma recovery and healing journey, from early life trauma to the practices and therapies that helped her reconnect with herself. This is a conversation about resilience, honesty, and hope for anyone who feels healing is still possible. So, Tracy, welcome to Healing Horizons. It's a pleasure to host you today.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So, JC, before we talk about healing, I'd love to start with where you are now. So, when you look at your life today, what feels most different inside you compared to a few years ago?
Oh, wow. Um, right now, I feel so much more at peace and relaxed, and I'm not on edge anymore. I used to be on edge all the time.
Yeah, I totally love that for you. And that sense of shift you're describing already says so much about the work that you have done, and it must not have been easy. So, Tracy, do you ever feel like you will reach where you are now today?
Sometimes it's hard to believe. When I look back at I didn't start my healing journey until 5 years ago. So when I look at how my life is today versus before I started my healing journey, I am such a different person. I look back and I can't even believe the transformation.
Yeah, no, that happens. Sometimes we feel like the change is impossible, but I think that what really matters is taking the first step. So, Tracy, how was it for you? How did you take the first step towards healing?
Honestly, it started on accident. I wasn't even really looking to I knew that I needed to make some changes, but I wasn't in this state of mind that I'm like I need help. I need to change. What happened for me is it just kind of happened naturally. 5 years ago, I started meditating, and I really, really enjoyed meditating, and I could see very quickly the benefits of meditation. So the more I practiced and then I started using guided meditation, the more I started getting answers. And I started seeing that I didn't realize how much work I needed to do and how much healing I had to do. So that was really what brought it out in me was the meditation.
Yeah, so you started small and gradually evolved, but the results they just changed your life. That's amazing to know, truly. So yeah, so many people assume that trauma recovery has a clear finish line, like one day you're suddenly healed. But from your experience, what do you think people misunderstand most about healing from trauma?
So everybody's journey is different and it's going to be very, very different. So what worked for me might not work for you. But the biggest thing to remember is that we heal every day. We've all been through trauma. So what I went through and what somebody else went through might be very, very different experiences, but it still is trauma. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is to put yourself first and to work on yourself and know that you're worth it, because even now that I'm on the other side of my healing journey and I'm at complete peace with it, I still have work to do every single day. It doesn't mean it stops. I still have work to do to be the best person I can be, and spiritually, emotionally, mentally. So, if you're just doing a little every day, it makes a big, big difference, and it doesn't take a lot to get started.
Definitely, definitely. And I read somewhere that healing isn't a destination, it's a journey. I think, yeah, that speaks for itself. It's not like you suddenly wake up one day and you realize that, oh, I have, healed. It takes time and you might relapse again. But I think what really matters is to keep going. And what I hear you saying is that healing is more about relationship and presence than erasing the past. And that reframing feels important as we go deeper. So, you've lived through layers of trauma at such a young age. I'm curious, as you reflected later in life, what patterns or survival strategies did you begin to notice that once protected you but later held you back?
Back then, I was just taking it one day at a time, but I wasn't even really feeling like I had to deal with my trauma. I was just living my life, and I what I did is I kept myself very, very busy. I never gave myself time to slow down and relax and really look internally, because I just I just didn't wanna face it. So, the busier I kept myself, the more active I kept myself, the I my career back in those days, I worked in the music industry, so I lived a very, very busy, loud life, which is perfect for somebody that's been through trauma, because you don't have to face your trauma. You're masking it with my career and this loud, busy life that I lived, and it really didn't start hitting me until about 5 years ago when I realized, wow, I've never really dealt with any of this.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because, so many people do that nowadays, whether it be a breakup or anything else. They just try to keep themselves busy and not think about it. But then, after a moment of time, it catches back to you. And what you really have to do is sit with the pain and deal with it, no matter how difficult that is. And it sounds like those strategies made sense then and only later asked to be gently unraveled. And that awareness often becomes a turning point. So, for listeners, yeah, definitely. So, for listeners who may not recognize their own trauma responses, how did unresolved trauma show up in your everyday life before you began intentional healing?
Well, now that I've healed, I can look back at how I was, for years. I didn't face my trauma for 40 years. So I can look back now at the choices I made, the partners, friendships, even romantic partners I had, people I allowed in my life, and realize that it was all I was allowing people in my life that weren't good or weren't healthy for me, because I was very, very insecure myself and I didn't know my own self worth. So I made very bad decisions and not facing that. And I put up with a lot from people that I shouldn't have over the years. So I look back at it now and I can identify that it was all because of my trauma. It was because I didn't have the tools to have healthy relationships. So now that I have those tools, I know what to do.
That's that's interesting, but it also makes things so much clearer. I mean, trauma, it can have a very big impact on your life. It might not look like that, but when you really notice it, it shows up. It manifests itself in many ways in your everyday life, like you just explained. And but Tracy, you mentioned the tools that now you now have to have healthy relationships in your life. So, how does one acquire those tools in life?
That's where the work comes in. That's where you need to really start taking a deep look inside on who you are, the choices you're making, and really you can't start healing until you look back at the choices you've made in the past. So we look back, you mentioned earlier about healing, it's a journey. And part of dealing with your trauma in the past is I'm going to add a little bit to that is your past is your past and the past is for time travelers. That's only where we've been. It's not where we're going in life. So moving forward, living in the present and forward, you have to picture the life you want, you truly, truly want, and then you have to do whatever it takes to get you there. And that starts with the internal work. And you have to be your own biggest cheerleader to get you through the trauma, whether it's through meditation. I journal a lot. That's another thing that's really helped me. Finding podcasts like this where you can speak and reach out to like-minded people that understand what you've been through and listen to their journeys and what's worked for them and find something because what worked for me might not work for somebody else, but find something or somebody that you can connect with that can help you identify those things. And this is a great platform for that. And this is why I started my podcast because I wanted to create a safe space for people through trauma to be there and support each other.
That is so true. And definitely, like you said, it's all about putting in the work and starting, just starting. It doesn't matter if you start with something small, such as meditation or writing your feelings in a notebook, journaling that you just said. You just have to start. You have to put in the work yourself because nobody else is going to do that for you. And
Right.
exactly. And that, that everyday impact you're describing, it helps normalize experiences that so many people silently carry. So, Tracy, you've spoken about meditation, journaling, and later MDMA, assisted therapy, as pivotal in your healing. So, what helped you trust yourself enough to explore these paths?
I had already done a lot of internal work when I first learned about MDMA. And so, what happened when I first learned about it is something just really deep inside me told me I needed to look into this more. And I just felt that it was the next step for me. And I was able to find a therapy center near me where I live that offers it. And I met my therapist, and she and I connected on such a deep level. I felt so safe with her. And going through the MDMA journey, she guided me. And that's one thing that if you're thinking about even doing something like that, or plant based medicine, or psychedelics, anything, and that you need to feel safe and be with somebody that's very, very qualified to guide you through the journey. That's the biggest recommendation I could give anybody, and when I went through the MDMA, it was a 4-hour session. It was very long, but it was guided, and it was just a beautiful journey, and it was a gift. I was able to see really deep into my subconscious on choices I made in the past, why I made them. Um and really dig deep into who I was, and it was just such a beautiful experience going through it. It's changed my life.
Absolutely. And I think that's so true. I think it's not only about healing, I think it's everything about life. We just need at least one person to give us that push. And after that, I think everything it comes easy to us, no matter how difficult that is. And I love that you had someone like that. But you also, mentioned about your therapy that lasted 4 hours, and I'm curious to know for listeners who have no idea what MDMA assisted therapy is, including me. Could you briefly explain it to us?
Yes, MDMA it's the key ingredient that's actually in ecstasy, but it's not the actual street drug ecstasy. Now, this is a medication that was given to me by a provider, and it's a microdose of what's in it. So what it does is when you take it, it really opens up your mind and helps you really look deep within to see anything. Like you don't know. When I went in, I didn't know what was going to come up in my subconscious or what I was going to see, but I was able to see myself as that child that went through all that trauma that I went through. But when you're taking this, what it does is it gives you a sense where you're looking back at your life through a lens of love and care and compassion. It there's nothing negative that goes through. So if something were to come up, like for me, I didn't know what was gonna appear that happened to me with my trauma that I had forgotten about. So, but I was ready. I felt I had so much faith going in that I didn't care. I knew that whatever would show up, I would be right. I was ready for it. And I was with my therapist. So she was there for me too. So it just has you look at your life through, like I said, this lens of compassion and love. And what it does is when you go through trauma, it shuts off all your serotonin and happy endorphins and all those happy chemicals in your brain when you're in trauma. So what the MDMA did is it was like a light switch. It turned all that back on for me, and it's been permanently on since I went through it. It has not shut off, and it's just been an amazing experience.
Wow, that was beautifully explained, and it's also interesting to know really the first time that I've heard something like this. But yeah, the way you explained it truly sounds wonderful, and I love that it worked for you. So, like we have discussed so many times in this conversations already that healing isn't linear, and setbacks can feel discouraging. But when old memories or emotions resurface, how do you support yourself instead of shutting down?
Yes, that's one thing about healing. It's very scary. So there are going to be setback because things might come up the next couple weeks that you weren't expecting. Just write it down, take time to absorb it, and that's kind of what happens. Like you're not going to have you're going to have bad days. You're not going to be 100% healed all the time. Like I'm still healing to this day. But what you need to do is it's what you need to take that information and how you're feeling and really dive deep into it, because sometimes it could feel like you're taking a step backwards, but that's where the real work happens is when you can take those moments and really look deep into what message it's trying to tell you, and then before you know it, you're taking 5 steps forward.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's really like when you're a toddler and you're just learning to walk. You fall, you'll continue to fall, but yeah, but there will come a time when you actually stand. And even after learning to walk, you can still fall. There are still chances. So it's not your fault. You just have to know how to get back up on your feet. And it's difficult, but yeah, that's just how it is. And what stands out is how compassion has replaced self judgment in those moments when you fall.
Yeah, 100%. And I love how you said that about a baby, because when a baby is learning to walk, they fall down, they don't care. They get right back up. It doesn't affect them. They just get up and they keep trying, and they don't carry that with them. "Oh, I fell." No, they just get up and try again, and they don't look back. So that's a really good analogy.
Yeah, exactly. And Tracy, for someone listening who feels stuck or overwhelmed by their trauma, what would you want them to gently remember about themselves right now?
So please don't feel overwhelmed. The fact that you're dealing with your trauma, that means you're a trauma rock star. That's why I started the podcast. Expect that. You want that to happen. I want you to lean into that and just start with little changes. I started literally meditating for 5 minutes. Now I meditate every single day, but I also now write in my journal and I put my thoughts down on paper. And that's helped a lot too. So, and listen to podcasts like this that have information and other ways that are out there to deal with it. But just take a little tiny step every day. Those, before you know it, you're a week of taking these tiny steps and you've come so far. It's the little steps that matter. It's not these big leaps. It's just the little things. So you can set a little goal every day to get yourself to where to the next, to the next day, just one day at a time.
Exactly, amazing. That is 100% true. And I love how you have said that listening to podcast, it might not sound that much, but it does help because I've also realized that listening to other people who have gone through similar things that you have and learning how they learn to navigate through all of that and heal from that, I think it really helps. And it also makes you feel that you're not alone. There are other people who have suffered through that too, and if they could surpass all of that, then so can you. So for that, our podcast is always there, and so is yours. That's The Trauma Rockstar is also there, and that brings me to the question, uh, Tracy, for listeners who feel connected to your story and want to learn more, where can they find you and your work?
Yeah, everything is under Trauma Rockstars, all socials and all platforms that you watch your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. It's on all platforms under Trauma Rockstars. And you can reach out to me through socials. You can message me or you can email me directly at podcast@traumarockstars.com. And I actually will answer you. I reply to all my messages. So personally, so you could reach out to me there as well.
Amazing. I'll have all the details on my show listing, and our listeners can feel free to reach out to you whenever they want. And, Tracy, through this conversation today with you, I have realized that healing is not about forgetting what happened, but about reclaiming safety, choice, and compassion within yourself. So, thank you once again for being such an amazing guest and sharing all that information with me and our listeners. And to our listeners, thank you for spending this time with us on Healing Horizons. If this conversation resonated, take a moment to sit with what's surfaced for you today. Healing often begins with listening. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and remember that your horizon is wider than you may think.